The Attorney General, as you know, I'm sure, is required to issue formal opinions interpreting Wisconsin law when asked to do so by certain public officials. Do you see yourself as an activist or a strict constructionist when interpreting the law?
Yeah, when we approach legal opinions, we don't take an ideological approach that falls into some particular ideological camp. What we try to do is objectively interpret the law so that the advice that we are providing is the best legal guidance that we can provide. And that's what we've done in the opinions that we've issued during my time as Attorney General. In one case, we withdrew a prior AG opinion that said that a state agency could not require certain buildings to have fire sprinklers. My view was that was inconsistent with state law, and we issued a new opinion that allows for that rule to go back into effect, and ultimately that's going to help save lives in Wisconsin. We've also issued an opinion regarding the ability of nurses at UW Hospital to organize as a union, in those cases and the others, we've been looking to provide the best advice we can, so that whoever we're providing that advice to knows what the most likely interpretation of the law will be.
Great. Will you, if you're reelected to another term, do you see yourself managing practices as the Attorney General? Or does it reflect a commitment to full equality of opportunities at all levels, all different people, economic levels, races, things like that?
Absolutely. My job as Attorney General, part of my job is to make sure that the outstanding, talented employees who we have at the Wisconsin Department of Justice have the resources they need, the training they need, and the guidance they need to be effective in their work protecting the public and ensuring that justice is done. And we are fortunate to have, as I said, outstanding, talented folks who work with our Department of Justice, and they work to keep communities safe and to get justice in a variety of ways. They do a great job at that, but we're also going to continue working to make sure that they continue to have the resources and the training that they need.
Okay. What is your position on criminal justice reform here in Wisconsin?
I think that there are a number of things we can do that at the same time make communities safer and make our system fairer, and those are the changes that I've been focused on. So, for example, one of the pieces of legislation we worked and successfully got passed is legislation that ensures that whenever a sexual assault kit is collected in Wisconsin, that kit is sent to the state crime labs. Previously, there had been a backlog of thousands of untested sexual assault kits, and when something like that happens, what it means is that you have both a survivor going without justice, and that justice is delayed, and somebody who's committed a serious violent offense can remain on the streets longer than they should. So by getting those kits tested, we're making sure that we get justice faster. Another area I'd like to see change is in our bail system. As a federal prosecutor, the system that I worked under was one that looked at the person's danger to the community and their risk of flight. And if they were dangerous or they were at risk of flight, they were detained pending trial. So you didn't have somebody who got arrested for a serious offense and then was able to make bail and get out because of that. It's also a fairer system because you didn't have the reverse either, where somebody maybe wasn't a danger but was arrested and they couldn't raise the money that they needed to post even a small bail to get out. Instead, they were released with conditions that would help ensure that they appeared. So to me, having a system like that where we're focused on dangerousness and risk of flight is going to keep our communities safer and is going to lead to a fairer system. Now, I'm also supportive of programs like treatment and diversion programs for nonviolent offenders. We administer those at the Department of Justice, and we've expanded them during my time as Attorney General. And what those programs do is that if somebody ends up in the system because they have an addiction to drugs, for example, or a mental illness, we work to address the root cause of what led them to the system. And that, again, both makes our communities safer and our system fairer, because if you have somebody who has an addiction who ends up in jail for a month and then they get out and they've got the same addiction, they're going to end up in the system again. if we can work to address the addiction, we can hopefully get their lives back on track and make the community safer, and also make a positive impact on that person. So those are the kinds of changes that I have supported and will continue to support.
Okay. What are 3 words, if you had to choose just 3, that would best be used to describe yourself professionally?
Tough, effective, and committed.
Okay. As you are sure well aware, obviously Wisconsin's a very big and diverse state. What would make you the best Attorney General, specifically just for the voters, specifically here in our northwest part of the state? Obviously very different than Milwaukee, Madison.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a few things that I think are important to mention. First, as Attorney General, my commitment is to representing all Wisconsinites, and that includes people from every part of the state of Wisconsin. And one of the things that I'm proud of is that we have worked on cases all over the state. We've worked with folks from all over the state to make communities safer. And so I've been to Superior, for example, to meet with some of the leadership of the police department there. I've been to northwestern Wisconsin a number of times to talk to folks and hear from folks. And there are a couple of things that I've seen as I've had those kinds of conversations. One is there are things that are common to people no matter where they live in Wisconsin. We all want to have safe communities. We all want to have safe and clean water to drink. We want our kids to be safe when they're going to school. And so on a lot of the issues we work on, whether it's school safety or fighting crime or protecting our natural resources, those are similar issues that the work we're doing is going to impact people all over the state. But there are also some issues that come up that are specific to particular parts of the state where there's an issue that might arise that impacts folks. So a good example from northwest Wisconsin is that a lot of people had Frontier Communications for internet service, and we brought in enforcement action to hold them accountable for what they for their misrepresentations. We were able to get them to agree to make changes and also to pay some money as a result of that. But standing up for folks all over the state when there are issues that impact people is key. Another issue that's impacted people all around the state, really, but certainly in the La Crosse area and other parts of the state, is PFAS contamination, these toxic forever chemicals that were dumped into our water. And for the most part, people had no idea that they were there and certainly didn't know that they might cause cancer or other serious health conditions. So we've gone to hold the polluters accountable. We filed a suit against manufacturers and marketers and sellers of PFAS for a couple of reasons. One is we've got to make sure we get those chemicals out of our water so that people can be safe drinking the water that they're drinking. But we also want to make sure that as we're having that cleanup happen, that it's the companies that profited off that pollution that are paying for it, and not Wisconsinites, not taxpayers. So it's important both to look at the issues that impact folks all over the state and make sure we're addressing them, but also to make sure that we're addressing issues that have specific local impacts.
Great. And then will you be willing to forcefully and zealously give the next governor of Wisconsin, regardless of party, so if it is opposite party, if Michaels is elected, advice that he wouldn't want to hear? And then conversely, are you willing to give a governor the loyal and confidential support he deserves, even if he's a member of the opposite party?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the really important parts of the job of Attorney General is representing state agencies and the governor in a number of different cases that involve the state in all sorts of different ways. And so one of the things that I'm really proud of during my time as Attorney General is that we have been a source of sound, effective, objective legal advice. And so very early in my time as Attorney General, an issue came up involving the lame duck legislation that was passed before Governor Evers and I took office. There was a case that had been pending that was trying to end the Affordable Care Act, which provides protections for people with a pre-existing condition. And, part of my campaign when I was elected in 2018 was based on getting Wisconsin out of that suit. But because of the lame duck legislation, there was a period of time when we didn't have the authority under statute to get Wisconsin out of that suit. Governor Evers asked us to withdraw. He even announced it in a speech. And we said, we don't have the authority to do that, so we're not going to withdraw from that suit. That was a case where I wanted to withdraw. It was a case where the governor wanted me to withdraw, and even though he's the same party that I'm in, we said we're going to stand up for the law and the rule of law here. Now, fortunately, there was a time when we got that law blocked for a period of time, and we were then able to withdraw from that suit and help protect, or keep in place protections for people with a pre-existing condition in Wisconsin. But it's an example of where we've stood up for the rule of law because that's what we need to do. It's equally true that if Governor Michaels were elected, we would let him know if we thought that what he wanted us to do is not something we had the authority to, or if he wanted to do something he didn't have the authority to do. But likewise, if there was a case where, where we were able to provide him advice and he wanted that advice, we would give him fair advice and respect the confidentiality in the process. That comes with the job. And that's part of what we would do regardless of who the governor is.
Great. And I'll open the floor. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the readers of the Intercounty Leader and those listening on our digital platforms that we didn't get to touch on?
Sure. I'll mention a few things. One of the things I'm really proud of during my time as Attorney General is that, we faced various obstacles. There was this lame duck legislation. We've had obstructionism from the legislature. And despite that, if you look at the issues we talked about in 2018, on issue after issue, we've delivered for Wisconsinites. So we did withdraw from that suit attacking the Affordable Care Act, and now 4 years later, we still have protections for people with a pre-existing condition. I talked about the backlog of untested sexual assault kits, and we've worked to get legislation passed that should help prevent there from ever being another backlog. And we also launched a kit tracking system so that survivors of sexual assault can track their kit as it goes through the process. We talked about making sure we were holding polluters accountable, and we've been doing that throughout my administration. I talked about holding big pharmaceutical companies accountable for their role in the opioid epidemic. And we brought a suit against Purdue Pharma. We joined multi-state investigations. And the state has now secured the recovery, as well as county and local governments, of over $400 million that's going to help fight the opioid epidemic. We've worked to make our schools safer, including launching a 24/7 tip line. And we have investigated and prosecuted some of the most serious crimes in the state of Wisconsin, including homicides and drug trafficking and internet crimes against children. Now, we've got more work to do, and I look forward to continue to building on the progress we've been making. My opponent would take us backwards on a number of issues. He would divert resources from fighting these serious, dangerous crimes to investigating and potentially prosecuting doctors or nurses or others under this draconian 19th century abortion ban. So there are clear differences in the race, and I'm proud of the record that we're running on, and we're going to keep working hard to get justice for people around the state of Wisconsin.
Great. Well, I appreciate your time this afternoon.